Welcome back to the Reecie Colbert Show. I am joined here by friend of the show, who is not one of the people that only pop up on election time, come to the Black church right before election day. This gentleman is a person who comes back to Sirius Urban View time and time again to let us know what's up, what's going on in the great state of Maryland. Introducing the one and only great governor of Maryland, the Honorable Wes Moore. Hey, Governor Moore, how you
What's
doing?
going on, Reecie? How you doing?
I'm
My
good.
favorite constituents, my favorite families.
Okay, I will take it. I listen. I receive all compliments with enthusiasm. Okay.
What's going on? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm trying to celebrate Dr. King weekend. Let's get it started right there. We
Yes,
just,
now.
commemorated Dr. King's actual birthday. And then
Mhm.
Monday is his the holiday. What are you doing to keep the honor and the legacy of the great Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr. alive?
Yeah, so we are actually going to be out all weekend, actually with the kids, doing service projects. We're actually going to be out with a lot of our a lot of our service year option students in the state of Maryland. Maryland is the first state in the country that now has a service year option for all high school graduates. So we're going to be
Mm-hmm.
out with a whole bunch of them on Saturday, Sunday, and also Monday, doing work in the communities. And I think really also just uplifting not just the story of Dr. King, but the hope. And I know for a lot of people, and it's interesting because I was telling somebody how they find it really hard that Monday, Inauguration Day, is also the celebration of Dr. King,
Uh-huh.
and how they feel very mixed about
Yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, like I've actually processed this, and I
Okay.
think to myself, I understand that, but actually, in some ways, it's deeply appropriate. And I
Mm.
think it's deeply appropriate for this way because Dr. King always reminded us this country is not perfect.
Mm.
And we have
Okay.
to remember its history. We have to remember the unevenness because Dr. King, when people think about Dr. King, he wasn't just in deeply hopeful, he was deeply honest.
That's true.
He was
That's
deeply
true.
honest about the fundamental brokenness, oftentimes, that this country shows. And despite the brokenness, our
Mm-hmm.
job was to still move to, as we say in Psalm 61, to a rock that is higher than I, right?
Mm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
Dr. King, actually, I believe that Monday and the remembrance of Dr. King on a day that, frankly, a whole lot of us worked very hard to see that we would not see on Monday,
Yeah,
what
right,
we're going to
exactly.
see. A lot of us worked very, very hard to that in the hope that it was going to be Vice President Kamala Harris
Right,
who would be
right.
taking the oath of office.
Yeah.
But the thing that I will say though is that in many ways, Monday being Dr. King's birthday is actually the reminder that we actually
Mm.
needed. That's the
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that I think about when people talk about what is Monday going to represent. Monday is going to represent the idea that we have to be honest about our history, but we still have to be optimistic about our future.
Yeah.
That the work still has to continue, and that really is its legacy.
That's the optimistic leader in you, guiding us through these times because I didn't
Trying.
have that. I wasn't getting that, but you've gotten me like 75% there. So okay, I'm gonna
I'm,
look at it.
I'm trying, Reecie. I'm trying.
Well, it's funny. My good sis Erica Savage, who co-hosts with me, she always says,
Mhm.
I don't want you to get in the grave with me. So she don't want people to just
Mm.
wallow in a place of misery with her. She wants people that are gonna help bring her up. I appreciate that you're willing to put that out there and get us in a more optimistic headspace. And I think that Dr. King deserves that recognition as well.
Oh, yes, he does.
And the fact that his legacy, it's
Mhm.
much more nuanced on that. It was about the working class, even though we have an oligarchy, as President Biden warned, coming in. So
Yeah.
thank you, Governor Moore, for that. Speaking of service, though, you mentioned your service year that you implemented in Maryland, and your budget just came out. And I noticed, for all the talk about budget cuts, budget cuts, budget cuts, your service year was actually expanded.
Yes.
And I know that there's a top line cut that was made, but I read through the PDF. It was about 200 something pages. And it was actually really hard for me to detect where the cuts were, because the constant theme that I read in your budget document was about investment. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about how, even though I would say the mainstream media and fairly so is framing this about the budget that has to make big cuts, how you really still approached it as a matter of investing in Maryland and people like the high school students that are pursuing a service year?
Yes. And you know, it is, and I'm so happy that you framed it that way, Reecie, because I'm actually really excited about the elements of this budget, because I think about what this budget does. We are making historic investments in education and public
Mm-hmm.
education and public schools, that we're making historic investments in childcare, that we are making historic investments in growth and economic growth and supporting small businesses and making it easier for businesses to come and choose Maryland and stay in Maryland.
Yeah.
And in historic investments in public safety and
Mm-hmm.
actually providing more assets, more opportunities for our young people.
Mm-hmm.
And we are giving the vast majority of Marylanders a tax cut.
Mm-hmm.
2/3 of Marylanders are going to get a tax cut. 82% of Marylanders are either going to get a cut or see no change at all
Okay.
to their taxes.
I can live with that.
And you know what I'm saying? 80%, next thing, no change at all, and no increase in sales taxes, no increase in property taxes,
Yeah.
right? And so actually, you know, when people talk about, you know, the fact that we have $2 billion worth of cuts in this, and I'm not saying that that is a small number, it is a very real number. But the
Right.
thing I'm most really excited about with this budget is it's not about what the budget doesn't do. It's about
Right.
what the budget does.
It really is. It
It's
really
what
is.
we're investing in, about how
Mm-hmm.
we're investing in economic growth, how we're investing in community development and community upliftment, how
Yeah.
we're investing things that the unique industries that Maryland should be winning in and leading in, but we
Mm-hmm.
have been ignoring for far too long. It's investing in our hopes and our dreams and our aspirations, and saying if we had a growing economy, we wouldn't have inherited a fiscal deficit in the first place.
Right.
And so this is how I think we really try to approach it. Show me what works. Show me the data of both what is effective and what is sustainable, and we'll invest in that. And that
Mm-hmm.
is how we will be able to uplift our highest dreams and hopes as a state.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I've been talking more about budgets with everything that's been happening in
Mhm.
Los Angeles. I'm getting my little NBA to use, every now and again it
Yes.
gets to pop out. But I really felt in my analysis of the budget that these were cuts done by a scalpel. It
Correct.
wasn't a hatchet. It wasn't just like, it was like, okay,
Everybody take 15% off. Like
yeah,
we don't do that.
it was very, very strategic. The thing about it though, I wanted to also say was interesting in the kind of qualitative analysis. And I thought something that was really smart that you did was you talked about the past several years of budget as well.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that when you came into office, you made investments. You kind of got some initiatives going. And the startup costs are always higher for an initial investment in things that Larry Hogan, let's just be honest, wasn't interested in. So
Right.
can you talk a little bit about how maybe some of those, at least in my interpretation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, how if some of those initial investments in your first years, in your first couple of budgets, have allowed you to make what's on paper cuts, but it allows you to sustain because you came in kind of swinging with your
Yes.
first couple of budgets.
Yes. And that we are focusing on how are we beginning to right the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Needed to. So for example, when we came on board, Maryland was 43rd in the country in unemployment, 43rd. And so I said, we've got to get this economy moving. We got to get people back into the workforce. So what does that mean? We made investments in childcare, because I should never have a situation where a family is deciding, are my children going to be okay, or can I go back into the workforce? It is
Yes.
fundamentally unfair. And frankly, it is fundamentally unfair to the women of our society, who oftentimes are the ones who are having to carry on this burden. That we said, we got to focus on job retraining and job reskilling and apprenticeship programs. So we made investments in apprenticeships and trades, and we did not double or triple, we quadrupled the amount of young people that could enter into trade programs and get our economy going. That we did invest in making Maryland the first state in the country that has a service year option, that we started removing the artificial barriers, things like cannabis convictions that were keeping people from becoming employed. And I signed the largest mass pardon in the history of the United States of America. 175,000 cannabis convictions were pardoned. And what's been the result? 43rd in the country in unemployment when we first started. Now, going on 14 straight months, Maryland has amongst the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country. Our labor force participation is now outstripping the national average. So it's like you had to make those investments in order to get the results that you were looking for. And so that's exactly how we're continuing to think about these issues, where you cannot grow if you're not investing, but you have to invest in things that can give you outsized growth. And that's where using data to say, okay, we've got to invest in life sciences and IT and on cyber and quantum. The reason that we just put together a $750 million economic growth package is because we're investing in industries that Maryland can uniquely win at.
Yeah.
But we have not been doing it. And if we can do that, then it makes everything a whole lot easier because our economic growth actually starts happening. And so you're right. I mean, but what we weren't going to do is simply say, you can just cut your way to prosperity, or you can just tax your way to prosperity. It is a lazy way of thinking, and it's a lazy way of governing. And that's exactly what we weren't going to do when we had the opportunity to be in these seats.
Right. I think it shows. The one thing, though, that we know, right, is that everything is political now. Everything is political. So I'm fast forwarding, not that you would ever think politics over the people, but I'm fast forwarding 26, couple years from now, and there's probably going to be some cherry picking coming from the left, coming from the right. Oh, you're a monster. You cut this, that was plus up, this was decreased. What is going to center you? What do you think you're going to be able to say confidently to the people of Maryland that even if you pick out any individual cut in this, or even if you pick out any individual increase, fill in the blank, is why it was the right thing to do?
I would say that numbers don't lie. Check the scoreboard.
Okay.
And I would tell them, and I would say, look at where Maryland's unemployment rate is. Look at what's happening to the violent crime rates in the state of Maryland. Maryland's having the fastest drops in violent crimes in the entire country. Where we went 8 straight years, where Baltimore City alone had 300 plus homicides for 8 straight years, that the homicide rate in the state of Maryland had nearly doubled over an 8-year period. Now we are literally watching some of the fastest drops. We have dropped the violent crime rate by over 50% in 2 years. That when you're looking at economic growth and economic advancement, when you're looking at wealth creation, look at what's happening with procurement, where we have completely adjusted procurement. Now 80% of all procurement packages that come in front of the state of Maryland have MBE goals attached to them. 80%. We issued now over $2 billion of new capital that's gone towards our MBEs. We focused on real pathways to work, wages, and wealth, that we have increased the minimum wage and gotten rid of the days where people were working jobs and still living at or below a poverty line. So numbers don't lie. Check the scoreboard. I think if people want to go and they want to take a look and say, well, he cut X or he did this. And by the way, we did all of that without raising any broad-based taxes in the state of Maryland. So I am really proud of the fact that we know that we inherited a true fiscal crisis. Yeah. We knew that we inherited a true crisis when it came to violence in our society. We inherited a crisis, and when we didn't inherit a crisis, but we had a crisis happen during our time with the Key Bridge collapse. I look at all these crises that either were waiting for us when we showed up, or we saw as we got there, and we have handled all of them. And so that's the thing I would say for anybody who's thinking that, coming at us in 26 is come ready.
Oh. I know that's right, girl. You better talk your stuff. Listen, look, I'm a math girl. The math has to math. And like you said, the data tells the story. And so, listen, I will be behind you reminding people what these are. I'm gonna be like, okay, well, when Governor was on my show, he said that the unemployment was down. So yes, Governor, you always have a friend and ally in me and us here at UrbanView. Before you go, that was a mic drop. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about that executive order about Clay Cane, New York Times bestseller Clay Cane's electric slide. Are you gonna really consider that? Because I feel like maybe we need just a smidge of an improvement before I'll co-sign an executive order. What you think of? Are you gonna grant him clemency? Maybe it should be clemency instead of an executive order. What you think?
Yeah, I think that 2025 needs to be the year of grace.
Okay. Yes,
I think listen, if he's willing to acknowledge, there has to be some form of acknowledgement.
Thank you. Right.
There has to be some form of acknowledgement.
Yeah.
If he's willing to acknowledge, I'm like, you know what? Grant the man some grace.
Okay. Okay, y'all heard it here. We're gonna give Clay an A for enthusiasm. Okay. And we're gonna give him grace.
I agree with that. It is very enthusiastic. It is very enthusiastic.
Well, Governor,
have fun with it.
Look, we're gonna work with him, but he can pop, dip, and spin better than me. Okay, he don't have electric slide, but the pop, dip, and spinning is on point. All right, so we're gonna give him grace. Governor, it is always such a pleasure to have you on the Reecie Colbert Show. You can come back anytime. You already know that. So
I plan on it. And I got to tell you too, we are so proud of you. Listen, we are so proud to claim you as ours, sis.
Yes.
You make us proud.
Thank you, Governor. Please give First Lady my love and your beautiful children, and have a great day, and have a Black MLK weekend too.
Black MLK weekend.
There you go. Bye, Gov.
God bless you. Thanks, Reece.